Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official audio program of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, Kirk Buchner, the Buck, the owner and the operator of NotInHallOfFame.com and the sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's Season 1, Episode 29 of the Hall of Fame show, and for the first time ever, I needed to get a co-host. Evan's away in Wisconsin having some fun in the Badger State, Cheese State. Badgers and cheese. Badgers might love cheese. Don't know. Not sure that cheese loves badgers. But I needed to get a co-host. Vinny Lospinuso, you've heard him many, many times. The Wunderkind. Well, he's 21 now, so is he a Wunderkind anymore? Not sure. I brought him in to be my co-host for this week. And we talked about the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They haven't really decided how they're going to do everything for 2021. So we sort of had our opinions on that, and I gave him a bit of a task. I asked him to come up with one player of all the big four sports, since pretty much they're all going to be starting in the next little while, or restarting, or have by the time you're listening to this, and who is sort of a bubble guy we're really looking at. So enjoy it. Hopefully you'll enjoy the show, and without further ado, let's bring in Vinny. Episode 29, and it looks like I've got my first substitute co-host. Evan, hope you're doing well in Wisconsin. Vinny, you've earned a shot here at being a co-host this week. How you doing?
I'm doing fine myself. Of course, very excited the MLB is going to start back tonight. And
yes.
I'm also very happy that they did expand the playoffs to 16 teams this year. That is the right decision. If you say otherwise, get lost, Boomer.
Yeah, I haven't seen all that. I knew it was expanded. I didn't know it was to 16, but we can certainly talk more about that at a different time. There's a few things that just sort of happened in the last few hours. So just for everyone, we're recording this in late afternoon Eastern time on Thursday. So the evening of Major League Baseball's return. We're a week away from basketball and hockey returning, and we're going to be talking a bit about that. But in the last 6 hours, we have some interesting name changes that I want to bounce off you first here. First, I'm super happy that the city of Seattle or the owners of the Seattle hockey team picked the greatest name. I don't know about the greatest name ever, but the Seattle Kraken. I love it.
This is an easy slam dunk. Just shut up and do it kind of moves. The name was listed amongst all the other ones, including like sea lions and totems and a whole bunch of other ones. And the easy one that stood out to me was Kraken. I said, "Oh damn. That's a cool name."
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, the name Kraken resurfaced again earlier this year as the rumored name, and everyone said that's an easy name. Kevin Smith said that he'd be willing to become a crackhead for it. Yeah, it's funny. And that has to be the name. And then they said, we'll reveal it later. And sure enough, today, it is the Kraken. Very, very easy decision here. What, you're going to call them the Totems, the Emeralds, the Sockeye?
I would have been okay with the Emeralds. I mean, that fits, being the Emerald City. But the Kraken, the Kraken's so much better.
I'm not poo-pooing on these. I'm just saying, come on, what's going to invoke fear into your opponent? A little green gemstone or a mythical giant octopus? Well,
there's a lot of bad names if you think about it. I've always said that one of the worst names in sports is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Leafs, not leaves, Leafs.
Right. So, I mean, something that's also, number one, grammatically incorrect. Because it's the Leaves. And number two, I mean, they're leaves. What are they going to do to you? Also, it's winter. They're not even alive.
You actually bring up a pretty good point there.
The only other one I feel worse about is the Utah Jazz. I've been to Utah. The jazz scene in Utah does not exist.
Well, it's called that because...
I know why, but change the name.
Yeah, they're not going to change the name.
Well, but speaking of name changes, we have another weird one. Not so weird because... Yeah, because the Washington Football Club... is it football club?
No. Washington Football Team.
Oh, football club. Team, sorry. Sorry, do you know why I said that, Vinny?
Because that was a proposal that one person had?
Well, I don't know if that... Maybe. I don't know if that's the case, but... Baltimore had a similar situation in the CFL when they briefly tried to expand to the United States, and the first time that they tried to call them the Colts. then went to the Stallions, and then for a year it was the Baltimore Football Club.
I understand that they do that in soccer, but it's a little bit different here because, I mean, it's temporary. So we shouldn't get too attached by the name Washington Football Club. But, you know,
well, I'll give you my take on this, Vinny, and then I want to hear what you think here. Obviously, with the current social justice situation, this was something that got pushed really, really fast and perhaps too fast for the team to really to change their name properly in sort of a staggered way. I think you and I can both agree that the Redskins name, it's not a great one. I thought, and I'm much older than you, and I thought that when I was a little kid, thinking like, that's a pretty insensitive name. And that's before there was a lot of pressure on to do that. Of course, there's been pressure on that for a long time.
There's been pressure since the name even created.
Sure.
Honestly.
And now, as we all know, the biggest reason it's happening now is purely financial. It's not that they finally came to the light. We know that's not the thought process of Dan Snyder and company. It's just they were financially forced to do so.
Snyder's not exactly the best owner, I would say.
No. But I would have, if I was them, and I wondered, maybe he did propose this, sort of give a moratorium on the name for 1 year and then just announce something else. Because now you've sort of put yourself in a lame duck name situation. Now, realistically, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But it reminded me of 1992 when the Soviet Union had collapsed and they participated in the Olympics as the unified team.
Yeah, it's a placeholder name.
Right.
Yeah, just call them the watch placeholders and call it a day. That's what I'd say.
Sure. But they won the gold medal in hockey. And it's so weird to sort of like look back when you see all the names of like past gold medal winners. And one of them is the unified team. And then you have to try to explain that to people, what that is. Of course, 20 years from now, we're going to have to explain who's OAR? What country is that? What Olympic athletes from Russia? Why didn't they just say Russia? I don't know.
Yeah, I just lump all this stuff under the Russia. I mean, regardless what the Olympic Committee does, we all know what the real answer is. And same thing with Washington football team. Look, it's a placeholder name. They're not going to be called this for the rest of their existence because really, is that really going to get people interested in this day and age? No. You go with a placeholder name right now, and you have some snazzy later on, like the Warriors, Red Tails, Red Wolves, Generals, Sentinels, whatever.
Whoa. The Washington Generals?
Yeah, that was a name that one person thought of, like, oh, why not call them the Generals? And I'm kind of mixed on that because on one hand, yes, it is involving the Harlem Globetrotters and, their history for the team that they always would beat, and Generals would make sense because, Washington, George Washington, but at the same time, and it would work for African-American history, but at the same time, like, I don't see Generals happening either way, personally.
Yeah, that's right now about as popular as maybe the Washington Police Force.
Yeah, because but even then, I look at it and say, it's called Washington, right? You do realize what that's named after. No, it's not named after Denzel.
Yeah, actually, you know what, Vinny? You've just solved everything. So, like if the social justice warriors want to sort of like change the name of everything with Washington, then just retcon it to named after Denzel Washington, one of the greatest actors of of our generation. You've solved everything.
That would be pretty funny. However, personally, I think even with it being called Washington, I actually would not mind if it's called D.C.
That could happen.
Because, even if you just take out the context that it's named after George Washington, one of the most influential people in American history, you still got to explain, oh, it's Washington. Like Washington State? No, Washington, D.C. So having to be called, emphasize that it's in D.C., I think would actually work not too bad, especially considering that D.C. could become a state that they call themselves Douglas Commonwealth, or just Douglas for short. I think that could work.
Wasn't the XFL team named the D.C. Defenders?
Yeah, yes, it was D.C. Defenders. In fact, they actually took the name D.C. Sentinels, which was a proposed name for the Defenders, and apparently the same person that worked on that worked here. And for those who don't know, Sentinel, is not the character, is not the giant robot from the X-Men franchise. It's actually, the term Sentinel in this context would apply to The Replacements, which was a movie in 2000 that had Keanu Reeves as Shane Falco, not Edie Falco, and not Falco from the Star Fox franchise, but Shane Falco, and it's not the dyslexic version of Flacco either. Yeah, I'm just going on a tangent about the name Falco, or even the singer.
Well, I could go further. I mean, so it's not about Rock Me Amadeus. I know that's way too old a reference for you, Vinny. Sorry.
I know the term Falco.
Oh, okay.
Listening ones I'm a little more familiar because one, I was born in 1999, so I would have a more understanding of The Sopranos and Star Fox and stuff like that. But I am aware of that kind of Falco. And I was a Flacco, you mean Falco, because his Falco is a dyslexic version. Anyway, basically that movie was actually based on a 1987 NFL strike involved the Washington Redskins, who ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. Mm-hmm. And the team in the movie was called the Washington Sentinels. Now, I feel like Sentinel, with that backstory, it's fine, but I don't know. The name just sounds kind of, I don't know. I don't know how much it really does it for me if it's called the DC Sentinels. It just doesn't sound right. I'd be down with Warriors because of a good alliteration, or Red Tails for the Tuskegee Airmen, or Red Wolves to help the endangered species, and I think that's also the most popular name of the area. I'm not too crazy about Sentinels. What about you?
I've got a great Canadian idea. Rough Riders.
Yeah. Washington Rough Riders?
Yeah, why not?
I do have a question. Would it be spaced or no space?
Well, let's see. The one that still exists, Saskatchewan. They're one word, I think. So be space.
But I still, even though it's been a while, it's still just. I still don't get why you would have two teams named exactly the same way, like.
Because they're stupid.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't have an answer for you. It's like in the olden days, whenever there was, I don't know what came first, the New York Giants in baseball or football. I think in baseball, and then they came, and then football. It's the New York Giants. Hell, when I was.
You were also talking about the Redskins are now called temporarily the Washington football team. You were saying the CFL, the Edmonton Eskimos, are temporarily going to be called the Edmonton football team.
Yes.
So, yeah, nothing's just America. But at the same time, I had no idea that Eskimo was a slur.
I don't know that it necessarily is a slur so much as it is... it's not the proper name.
Is it sort of like how we use the term Indian to describe Native Americans?
Yeah, maybe in a sort of like a broad stroke, because like there's different northern tribes. Most of them are the biggest tribe in Canada is the Inuit. In terms of
Inuit. The proper term is Inuit, where here it's Native American. Because that's usually what I think of. Like I say, Eskimo. Because I never really thought of it as much of as an insult, probably because I'm not an Inuit. Though I have thought that's kind of similar to how Indian is used here in America.
Well, that's the next name that's going to change, because the Indians are talking to Native American groups, and then just before I called you, there's a push to change the name of the Rupp Arena in Lexington.
What? Going with the Indians, the Cleveland Indians, if they change their name, mm-hmm. there's only one name they should change themselves to.
Spiders?
The Spiders.
Yep.
Spiders. It has to be the Spiders. I've seen people say, "Oh, why don't they call themselves the Blue Sox?" Like,
no.
Why would you call yourself the Blue Sox? And we're the Blue Sox. No. Hell no. Don't do that. Spiders is clever, and yes, I'm aware of their season in 1898. But guess what, guys? They also had Cy Young on their team. Don't forget that.
No, I like the Spiders. I like it a lot better than the Naps, another name they used to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like before we go into our main topics here. But yeah, so some Kentucky faculty want name change for arena named after former basketball coach Adolph Rupp. So I mean, I think once your name is Adolph, you're clearly a bad person no matter what. So apparently, this is what some faculty wrote in a letter. The Adolph Rupp name has come to stand for racism and exclusion in Kentucky athletics and alienates black students, fans, and attendees. So I guess, and I apologize, I don't know much about him other than that he was massively successful. I guess he was very hesitant to get black players to recruit black players.
Adolph Rupp is one of the greatest college coaches of all time. He had an .822 winning percentage.
That may be, but if he was, I mean, this isn't really going into a whole lot of what he did. So I'm going to try to find out more about that for next week.
Yeah, and it's not even spelled the same, the PH instead of an F, obviously. But I feel like, it wasn't his fault that his name was Adolph.
Well, I don't think that's what they're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that's kind of, it feels a little uneasy because obviously it's not because of what he did. It's based on something that he literally had no control over.
Well,
I mean, he could have changed his name.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he didn't. But that's
irrelevant, though. I don't know if Rupp was a bigot. I'm assuming this. I'm going to look more into it. I was wondering if you might know more about that. The only thing it sort of says here in this ESPN article that sort of ties into race directly. So, 1966, Rupp's all-white Kentucky team lost to an all-black starting five from Texas Western, which is now Texas El Paso, in the championship tournament. And then 3 years later, he finally signed his first black player. So in 1969, that's kind of a bit late to the table, I suppose. But if there's comments that he said that certainly are massively racist, then yeah, I'd agree with this.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue, but obviously it's sort of the same way. Like, could we take out George Preston Marshall in the Hall of Fame? No, they're not. No, they really shouldn't because.
Sure, then, take down the statue.
No, yeah, I mean that's one, but that's for the Hall of Fame. But they're obviously not going to take out the guy that had the second highest winning percentage of all time. And all. No, do not take out anyone. That's only going to just increase a lot of tension. But as for something that is lesser, yeah, I could see it. But even then, tread carefully.
Well, yeah. I'm going to learn a little bit more about that. So if there's something that he may have said that's sort of been unearthed, or I don't know. I mean, because I don't know that much about this. I don't know if this is sort of a going forward thing, or if this is just something that a couple faculty members are being a little bit too SJW. I don't know. I always try to keep a super open mind on this, but I just thought it might be sort of interesting to just sort of throw that out there and see what happens and see how this story progresses.
Yeah.
So I want to kick off, I guess, the main portion of the show with something that you are super duper passionate about. I've seen you've been making a lot of comments on Twitter about that with some of the people in the main know in terms of actually being on that committee. There's talk of. We don't really know what they're going to do, but you and I have talked ad nauseum. I don't know. A lot.
No.
We've talked a lot about how they should look at a lot more senior candidates, and that is something that could happen. What are your thoughts on that, other than yes, they should?
I don't think I have anything else to say that, yeah, they should, because there's a potential talk that, they might just have a class for the next few years that has only 5 moderns, 1 senior, 1 contributor, and 1 coach. And I just take back and say, hold on a second. 5 moderns, I'm okay with it, though I would prefer 6. And I do like having 1 contributor and 1 coach per year. I like that. But my main issue, in fact, my really big issue with this comes from the fact you only have 1 senior. Look. You go from a situation where you had 1 for a while, and then you have 2, and then you have the contributors section, which goes from 1 to 2 each year, and then you have a big class that allows 10 in, and now you're only going back to 1, despite the fact that the most passionate side of people invested in the Hall are the ones that are advocating for the senior candidates? Are you kidding me? Like, seriously? Why would you think about that even in the slightest, especially considering that you have to wait literally like 5 years just to see Drew Pearson? No, I'm highly against this, completely against this. It has to be at least 2, maybe even 3, at least 2. There's no reason. You make their situation so hard. And on top of that, you look at all the demand. I mean, it's not just the 10 that missed out this year, Gradishar, Pearson, Dilwig, Emerson, all that other stuff. You have all these other guys. Ken Anderson. You have Ken Anderson. You have Tom Sestak, Chuck Howley, Roman Gabriel, Ken Riley, L.C. Greenwood, Maxie Bond. All these things. I mean, I'm just spitballing names here, but you get the idea. Mm-hmm. There's so many names, and you want to make it that narrow that you only choose one. You realize that the situation and the reaction from people are already not so great. Do you really want to make that even worse, especially in a day and age where with COVID, more and more people are going to be more hostile and way more on edge? That's a recipe for a disaster. There's no question that they should have more than one senior per year.
I think that's what we're going to see. I really do. I think it's going to go to 2. I think there's been, I don't want to say a backlash, but it's certainly a positive reaction to having a lot of those. And people were just really opened. I think it opened up a lot of eyes to some snubs from the past. When you're sort of celebrating 100 years of a league and you've got footage as incredible as the NFL does, you're a great example of that, Vinny. I mean, you're, 20 years old?
I'm 20. I just turned 21, so I can drink legally now.
21, okay. So you're 21 years old, and you are pretty much a football historian. I'm not even going to call you I only have to say amateur because you're not getting paid for that particular field of endeavor, but you're at a level that most people who have studied the game for decades don't really understand in terms of its history. So it was presented to you because of the great job of the league overall. Yeah. So definitely it's got to be at least 2. I've got a lot of optimism, maybe just because I'm in a pretty damn good mood today.
Yeah, too. I'm especially in a happy mood because of Kraken and the expanded playoffs. Washington football team, not so much, but definitely the other 2. And especially considering that, I'm happy. I'm very happy that Rick Gosselin and Clark Judge and these other voters are really advocating as hard as they can for at least 2 seniors. And potentially 6 moderns. I think that could be arranged, too. 6 moderns, I can see, this is an idea that you can have. Let's say here's a good compromise. You have 10. 6 moderns, especially with the incoming amount of moderns like, Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, and whatnot. 2 seniors, a coach, and a contributor. Or you could have a situation where it's 5 moderns, 3 seniors, a coach, and a contributor. I think the former is more likely than the latter, though. But I do think, having 10 instead of 9 is the ideal way of going about it. Now, will that actually be the case? I'm not too sure. With me, it's bigger, better in this case, especially with the number of seniors. I mean, come on, there's so many names. And if you look online, that's who people are advocating for the most. It's the seniors. It's not the moderns. It's the seniors.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I can see this conversation going to David Baker. Yeah, we want to have more. Do I get to be on TV more? Yes. Can I do my signature knock? Why, yes. Sold. That's the worst David Baker impression.
Yeah, he actually, David Baker kind of reminds me of my middle school principal, believe it or not.
He reminds me of Shrek.
Donkey!
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm very hopeful that that's what we're going to see. Hopefully that's going to be the case.
If this ends up being failing, we do end up having the 5-1-1-1 thing that the Hall might be proposing. I think every single one of the voters deserve to get exactly what they deserve. I think they deserve to be criticized. Yes, obviously they're not the ones that make the decisions from this election, but at the same time they have a lot of sway in it. And if you say you care so much, okay, push for it. And I'm very happy that they're actually they're actually advocating for this. And I do think we will potentially see, 2 seniors, hopefully 3, or at worst, maybe 6 moderns, two seniors, because obviously I know there's some people that are a little concerned with the number, but I say stop focusing on the number. Look instead at the people getting in as opposed to the number of people getting in, because people just use the number getting in as a way to just justify how angry they are that the guy that they want isn't in, because you like to say that your guy is better than everyone else, and if this guy that you deem as lesser than is getting in, then they're letting in way too many. They're letting everyone in, apparently. They're going to let in the third-string kicker in or whatever.
Only Deion Sanders worries about that.
Yeah, again, try actually saying that to, Carmichael or Covert or anyone else that's getting in, Deion. I'm pretty sure you'll try to tackle them, but you won't be able to tackle them even today.
Deion Sanders, the James Harden of football.
He is the James Harden of football. All that's missing is, the beard. But however, I did like the beard that he was growing. I mean, Deion, please keep that up, please. I like it. I would also say that, what do you think is more likely? Do you think we're going to see 9 people make it, or do you think we might see 10? And if we see 10, do you think a 6-2-1-1 option is more likely, or a 5-3-1-1 option?
I'd prefer a 5-3-1-1.
Yeah, I prefer 5-3-1-1.
But I think they're more likely to go 6-2-1-1.
Yeah, I'd be fine with either one. And yeah, I'd be fine with either one personally. I would prefer 5-3-1-1, but at the same time, I also know there are a lot of moderns coming. And, if you want to see Sam Mills get a better chance, this could be your opportunity. Or Steve Tasker in my case. Either way, I'm fine with either one. Though I would say that I would like to see someone like Pearson get in sooner as opposed to later. Though I do think, you will see, more than one senior make it. And it just makes sense. You know where the base is. This is what they want to see. They got a lot of positive reactions. The only people getting negative reactions are the ones that usually can't name almost anyone in there, except for just how they just blindly hate Joe Namath for no reason whatsoever.
And then instantly, too, the other negative reaction was all of us who watched that broadcast.
Oh, yeah, I hated that too.
Oh, I'm still stuck on that. 2 hours to sort of drag that down.
I am too.
Poor Drew Pearson.
I mean, come on. I mean, I'm happy for Slater. I mean, Emerson, R.I.P., Wistard, R.I.P., Dillig, R.I.P., Branch, R.I.P., and then you see Pearson and Gradishar.
It was Pearson that broke my heart the most, man, because I guess nobody told him a whole bunch of stuff, so he was videotaping, as you saw, yeah, because he had the whole thing on videotape, but they didn't show him. They showed him after he knew for sure he wasn't getting in, but he obviously knew an hour and a half earlier when he saw Harold Carmichael walk on the screen. He had to.
Yeah, and I think if you're gonna have 3 seniors, the way to do it is that you choose 3 of them from this. And I think a great way to do it is that you have Gradishar, Pearson, and Wister. You basically have every single perspective. You have the one that the fans are demanding, Gradishar. You have ones that the historians want to see. You would see the ones that historians want to see, which is the one that historians want to see in Wister, and then you have the ones that the general public wants to see in Pearson. I think that's a great meeting. You appeal to every single base.
Yeah, all you need now is Ralph Banerska.
Huh?
That's kicker. I've just been seeing that name pop up when I was working on another project. I just like the name Ralph Banerska.
I was thinking, is that the guy that created the soccer style kick? Because I do know that he is on my spreadsheet. Because yes, of course he is. You know how special team.
No, he was a good kicker. Just I think he was. I just like to say the name Ralph Banerska. Let's move on. I'm killing the show right now.
It's a fun name to say. I do love, like I said, you know how much I get. I get a little stiff whenever I see a kicker or a specialist. I mean, that just opens up my third eye and everything. It opens up my third eye when I look at it because I love my specialists a lot more than those, and then my assistant coaches.
Your third
Special
eye.
teamers and
Okay.
assistant coaches. Yes, that's what I like to see.
Okay. Your third eye. You know what that's slang for, too, right?
My third eye?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
Okay, so just,
No. I trust me. I know exactly what I was going to say. I was going to quote Penguin Zio here, or Charlie White, who's a YouTuber. He's pretty funny. You should watch his videos. He talks in a very monotone voice, and yet he's pretty intellectual.
okay.
He's a good YouTuber. I check him out.
So after we've now spoken of your third eye, let's move into the main topic of discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I asked you, because we're getting the eve of the baseball season, this COVID shortened baseball season, and with everything sort of starting up, hopefully in the next 6 weeks, I asked you to come up with one guy from each league that you're really going to be watching intensely to see how it sort of goes. I don't want a lot, just one, because it might be a very important year for them. If it's all right, I'll start. And here's my baseball guy.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Strasburg of Washington.
Oh, I was thinking about him too. Yes, Strasburg. Oh, I love Strasburg.
Yeah.
He is so great in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
He is always, he's always, he's a perennial Cy Young contender. He's been great in the playoffs. He had easily one of the greatest postseason performances by any pitcher in history, not named Madison Bumgarner.
But there's still so much that he's got to do. Now,
of course,
the Nationals, they babied him right from the start, knowing that he's got this great arm, great talent. Last season, he did something that probably a lot of people thought he couldn't do at age 30, which was lead the league in innings pitched. It was only 209. I mean, it's not like the 300 that I grew up with as a kid, but nevertheless, it was a great season. Fifth in Cy Young. He's never won a Cy Young. Strasburg, if he can put together another good year, because he's not going to probably get to 200 wins. He's at 112 now.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's got a couple good years left in him, now is sort of the time to really sort of build on that. He's one of those guys in a previous show I did with Evan where we looked at who could be hurt the most. Strasburg was one of the guys I said. But if he has like a really good year, maybe like win a Cy Young, because they won't remember that it was done in a COVID year. Because if he wins that, then he's got that and you can never take that away.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the guy I'm looking at the most as, I don't want to say a make or break year because he still has time, but I think this is a very important year for a 31-year-old pitcher.
Yes. Now, as for my pick, I'm going to go a little bit off the wall here, but I think maybe not really because, of course, he is one of the faces of the league. I love Bryce Harper. I've always liked Bryce Harper.
He was my number 2 guy when I was thinking about this.
The reason why I chose Bryce Harper is, yes, I understand that he had the big contract, and I understand that not everyone likes his personality, but hear me out. Bryce Harper is one of the faces of the league. Bryce Harper's a 5-tool guy. And especially with this 13-year contract that he got with the Phillies, there's a lot of pressure on him to turn things around and really cement himself in that Hall of Fame trajectory, which I do think he still is. I know that a lot of people want to poo-poo him, but I have always liked him. I know that you say, average. Listen, the NL East is the most competitive division in the MLB. Out of all the divisions, it's the one that most people are unsure of is going to win it. And one of the teams that can watch is the Philadelphia Phillies, especially with Joe Girardi as manager. Mm-hmm. I really do think Bryce Harper is going to have a big, big season where he is going to have at least a 300 batting average, maybe 350. I don't know. I think he's going to have another quality season. I think he is going to get a Silver Slugger in the National League. At least that's what I'm hoping for. But it is tough competition when you have Yelich and Bellinger and Betts, but I think he can do it.
Great pick. Well, the thing, too, is also sometimes narrative. I've always, and I've said this to you before, I know I've said this to Evan before and like a few other people, the thing that to me will always hurt Phillip Rivers is that the guy he took over from became a better quarterback and won a Super Bowl. Drew Brees.
Yeah, I know. I know that people are also saying, "Oh, Bryce Harper left and the Nationals won the championship."
Exactly.
Well, but then again, it's not. Keep in mind, Bryce Harper wasn't the only reason why the team was good. You need to understand, you had Scherzer, you had Strasburg, you had Soto, you had Turner, you had Rendon. It's not just Bryce Harper, a whole bunch of other people too. And also they brought in Patrick Corbin that season as well. So as much as people want to make that narrative, if these writers care so much, if they know about, reality, it's not good to push narratives, and people also want, and that right there is why a lot of people can't stand a lot of them. Now, I'm not trying to say that I do. I'm very neutral towards them, but at the same time, if you keep pushing that, pushing that BS narrative, you're just going to keep wondering yourself why people can't stand you.
Is Bryce Harper a Hall of Famer? That's a clown question, bro.
Clown question? Well,
no. Do you remember when he did that?
Well, all I gotta say is we live in a society.
All right, so I got my hockey guy. I want to see what you think.
It's not the actual hockey guy, is it? Shannon Steen?
No. So here's my hockey selection. Someone who might be a Hall of Famer, might not be. Another good year, which he's certainly more than capable of. Actually, he already has it because he's at 87 points for the year in 70 games. They're going to have a few more games. His team's going to the playoffs and is a top seed. Boston Bruins and Brad Marchand.
Oh, I like Marchand. I love the rat. I love face liquor.
Yeah. So I mean, he's already been a 2-time postseason All-Star, which is a really big deal in hockey. If he can lead this team, granted he's not the best player there anymore. That's Pasnarek, but if he wins a Stanley Cup, and I think that it sort of puts him on the right side of the bubble, or at least going forward. That's what I think. So Brad Marchand,
I think that,
based on a lot of what the Bruins do.
I think that's a good choice. However, my choice is a little bit different.
Okay.
This is a guy that I've seen people say, could he be, could he not be? I think a good one, Nicholas Backstrom.
Oh, okay. Explain that one.
I go with Nicholas Backstrom because he's sort of like, obviously he's not the same as Evgeny Malkin for the Penguins, but he's always been seen as that, that Robin to Ovi's Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, he's great at assists. He's always, you could say, the numbers are, well, understand that a big reason what makes Ovechkin also better is because you have someone like Backstrom. I would also say that, if the Capitals go on another run, I think this could also really help. But I don't think he would be alive if he were retired today. But I do think, you need to understand that the Capitals themselves, a lot of their success isn't just from Ovechkin. A lot of it is from Baxter. So you need to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, well, being part of a back-to-back championship when you're a top 3 or 5 contributor on that team, that always sort of bodes well, for sure. Baxter, that's a really good pick. So I'll move to basketball next. This is a guy I think is a Hall of Famer now, but the narrative on him has changed badly against him over the last 5 years. He's saved his reputation. This feels like I'm talking about a girl in high school, but sometimes the way he acts, man, it's almost fitting. Again, this man's already a Hall of Famer in my eyes. I've got one of my other good friends who totally disagrees, but I'm going with Dwight Howard of the Los Angeles Lakers. If Howard helps the Lakers win and plays a good role in it and keeps his mouth shut, he's now a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he should be already, but there are people who would disagree because he got ran out of 4 different cities.
The same people that are saying that Dwight Howard's not a Hall of Famer are the same people that say that Carmelo Anthony is not a Hall of Famer.
They're mostly not so much shitting on sort of the play, just how he's a garbage teammate.
Well, those people don't know shit about the sport. Don't know anything about the sport. Howard will definitely make the Hall of Fame. I don't think that's a question. He's the best center of this entire decade. 2010. So I think he'll have no problem making the Hall of Fame.
Well, I don't think there's an issue with him getting in either. It's more of the reputation that he had. My buddy Dave back in Canada, like, we came up with this idea. We just sort of like called it like the ultimate Hall of Fame party. You know, like the way it sort of works, it's almost like rock and roll heaven. You sort of die, and then you show up the rock star. You're automatically retconned. Retconned is the second time I use that. You're automatically like back to being like 27, like in your prime. So we figure, okay, there's the Hall of Fame party. Dwight Howard gets in, but you know all the other cool kids make him sit with the refs because he's just does so many dumb things.
Yeah, he does. Though at the same time, I think he'll make it either way. So I'm not worried about Dwight Howard. However, there is someone I am actually very interested in, and I was thinking about saying Kyle Lowry, but I think he might be okay. The person I'm really interested in is Kevin Love.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, explain this one.
Kevin Love was the person that changed the way we look at a big man.
Wait a minute, Kevin Love is he even playing in this?
No, but I'm still including him. You didn't say it had to be someone.
No, I didn't. Okay, but there's nothing more he could add this year.
Yeah, you have a good point. You know, I'll throw in Kyle Lowry then.
Okay.
But you know, if you're going based on just in general, I say Kevin Love because I think he needs to have a rebound. I think he needs to get traded to a place where he can actually contend. Mm-hmm. But as for Kyle Lowry, I love Kyle Lowry.
Oh,
I love the guy.
So do I.
He's the best Raptor in franchise history. Yes, Kyle Lowry is the best Raptor in franchise history. Not Kawhi, single season there. Not Vince Carter. And based on accolades, based on longevity, based on impact to the team, and in terms of leadership, Kyle Lowry is the best Raptor of all time. And not in terms of career, just players that have played for the Raptors.
I think for me, too, when you bring this up, and it seems like this was seasons ago, but it wasn't. It was this season. You watched the NBA All-Star game, right?
Yeah, of course I do.
Okay, all right. So, like, which I think you and I can both agree, that was probably the best All-Star game I've ever seen.
Yeah, same here.
Okay.
You've seen some people online that were just complaining that it's not the team it was before. Listen.
Well, they can fuck themselves. But what I remember, too, just as a Raptors fan, as you know, Lowry doing one of the best things that he does better than anyone, and that's draw a foul. And just, and just sort of like get there, stand there, take the hit. Nobody does that better than Lowry. Nobody's more selfless. For a guy who was labeled as a selfish prick when he was playing for the Rockets, and maybe he was back then. People change. Look at Vince Carter.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, Lowry. That's a great choice too. Someone I also thought about because when people wrote about last year after the Raptors shocked the world and won the championship. So there were a couple articles that came out. So is Lowry a Hall of Famer? And a lot of people, if you look at the comments sections, as you and I do, said, like, no, are you nuts? But if the Raptors shock everyone again, I don't think they will, but if they do, how do you deny Kyle Lowry, 2-time champion, 5-time All-Star now?
6-time.
6-time, sorry. 6-time All-Star. And in the heart of that team.
Lowry is one of those individuals that he means so much for that team's history. In fact, when Kawhi Leonard won Finals MVP and he was sitting next to Kyle Lowry for an interview, he said, he said that he's the MVP of the team. Kawhi Leonard said that Lowry was the heart and soul of the team. Mm-hmm. Even when you had DeMar DeRozan there, even then people knew Kyle Lowry. In terms of what he is,
yep,
he is the heart and soul of the team. He's the point guard.
Oh,
he's the leader.
I got something here for you now, bud. Because you love looking at all the executives. So you want to know who then benefits the most? Let's say Toronto
Masai,
wins again. Exactly, Masai.
Love Masai.
Oh, how can you not?
Love Masai. Yeah, they should do a statue of him. Not Kawhi. They should do one of Masai Ujiri. Not only that, the impact that he's also had in terms of basketball in Africa. Understand the impact of Masai Ujiri. I've always liked Masai Ujiri. Ever since he came there, he's always been a quality executive, and he did an impressive move, and it worked out for him. It worked out for him.
Okay, speaking of Africa, and you're right. Yeah, Masai. I think like we both agree, like best GM in basketball. He pulled out a trade that was unpopular at the time for a hired gun, and it worked out. He rolled the dice, and it didn't come up craps. Like he let it ride. He had some money on the 35 at the roulette table, and just thought, what, I'll let it ride. It's going to come hit again. But have you ever heard this? Because you brought up the Masai in Africa, right? So have you ever heard about because the Leafs and the Raptors are owned by the same team, the same organization, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Yeah. Okay, so Masai had arranged something to honor the former South African president Nelson Mandela. So you had a bunch of the Leafs there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear what their goaltender at the time said?
What did he say?
Okay, I was going to play. Wanted to play the video. So it was the funniest thing. So it's sort of like this, not red carpet bullshit, but just stuff like that they're asking. So they're asking Jonathan Bernier, a Quebec, I guess he would have been in his early 20s, would have been, I guess, slightly older than you are now. But, all right, so here's his quote, Jonathan Bernier, when they asked about Mandela, because it was a Mandela celebration at, I was going to say Maple Leaf Gardens, but Air Canada Centre. Here it is. Quote, "He is one of the most known athletes in the world, and a lot of impact in any kind of sport that he did. Even playing hockey, everyone knows him. From being the type of person he was off the ice and on the ice. But he changed a lot while he was with us. He's a tremendous guy." Please go watch that YouTube video. Everyone listening to this, watch the YouTube video. Just Jonathan Bernier, Nelson Mandela. This is the Quebec-born hockey player being asked about the impact of Nelson Mandela in the world, and he came up with about what a great athlete he was.
Also, going with Masai Ujiri, in 2003, like I said, his impact on Africa, because he did the Giants, he created Giants of Africa. It was It's a camp that still goes on to this day to fight for girls and boys all across the continent discover their talent in basketball. I mean, that's pretty major. Just forget the fact that he was the executive only just cherry on top of the sundae of his impact in the game itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so that leaves us with one sport, football. For me, the answer is clear. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
You go first.
All right, Cam Newton.
Oh yeah, Cam Newton would be one for me too, because if he wins MVP, or if he just brings the team brings the Patriots to the playoffs, I mean, that's gonna be pretty major. What's your reasoning?
No, it's the exact same. Cam Newton got a raw deal out in Carolina. They pretty much wrote him out of the league. So out of the city. I shouldn't say out of the league. That's not accurate. So Newton now, I guess he was forced to bet on himself, because it's a league minimum contract for a former MVP who has only been hurt realistically 1 year. It's shocking to me that it took this long for him to sign with anyone. First off, I'm now thrilled he's not in my division as a Saints fan. Thank God.
Don't worry, it's Tom Brady now.
Well, that's true. You get rid of one, you lose one MVP to get another. So.
Well, this more than just an MVP, but at the same time,
he's also 41.
Well, actually, he's 40. He's going to be 40. He's actually
42.
He's 42. He's going to be 43 now.
43. Okay. So yeah, for me, it's Cam Newton. If Cam Newton has, in pardon my language here, a fuck you season to all the people who were doubting him, which there's a lot, and which a big part of me is hoping he does have. A part of me that also made a small wager on the Bills winning division. Also hopes he doesn't have. But Cam is he's a great player. He got a terrible deal. He still gets remembered for how he acted after his Super Bowl loss. He acted fine on the field, so he whined afterwards. I mean, people are making a much bigger deal of it than they should. Still are. It's still referenced today. So Cam Newton, for me, is Hall of Fame talent. He's on the wrong end of the Hall of Fame discussion at present. A monster years with New England will be huge for him, bigger than anyone else. That's my guy, and there's nobody even close.
That's one for me, too. With me, I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Ndamukong Suh here.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
He's a guy that later on in his career, it's not so much like he may not show on the stat sheet, but understand that a big reason why Aaron Donald and Shaq Barrett led the league in sacks is because you had Ndamukong Suh there as the defensive tackle, opening up those holes. Understand that Ndamukong Suh, he made the All-Decade team. I'm a big fan of Suh. Fortunately, his reputation has gotten better over the years, and I'm very, very happy that he has Tom Brady now as his quarterback. I really hope the Buccaneers do good, because if that's the case, and Suh goes to a second Super Bowl, it's going to do wonders for him. Also, I want to go back on Cam Newton.
Yeah.
I think another reason as to why a lot of people are also mad with Cam Newton, and this does involve the Hall stuff, the black quarterback thing. I should mention that. Because there's still some thoughts about that today. Unlike a Russell Wilson, who kind of is more groomed and whatnot, Cam, to some African Americans, they see as a real black quarterback, because he's less traditional. He's more out of the box. And a lot of people associate that with African Americanism.
Yeah, I know what you're. I think I see what you're kind of trying to say here, and maybe two white guys shouldn't be the ones doing this conversation, but yeah, I mean, is there still that sort of systemic hidden racism when it comes to the black quarterback? Yeah, absolutely.
Partially, but not partially, especially when it comes to ones that are more outside the box, like a Cam Newton or a Jameis Winston or Lamar Jackson, because people say that. Is it? I have no idea. I don't know if I'm the best person to say it. But then you also look at other people throughout history. You mentioned, a Cunningham or McNair or McNabb, and there are people saying, if he was white, he'd be in. Now, is that the case? I'm not too sure about that. It's very...
I wouldn't say that about McNabb. It seems like no matter who you talk to, everyone dislikes McNabb. I don't know what the hell he did to people. I've never seen anyone so good who did as bad. He did be this good and to be this universally disliked.
It's because of how he was the last 2 years of his career with the Redskins and the Vikings. Okay, he was washed up at the end. Okay, get over it. But at the same time, you also see the people that go the other way and say, it's race, this and that, and whatnot. And, it also goes with Cunningham. You could also say, I think Cunningham more so, but I've seen people say, it's a fraud. But at the same time, it's the same people that keep saying that all pro is the only thing that matters. And, everything else it's just a lot of hypocrisies and contradictions with people's logic sometimes. And I have to be the one that brings it up, because it's not like other people will. But going with race, there's this one other issue that I've seen. Did you see the Deadspin article?
No, I did not.
The Deadspin article that mentioned, Hall of Fame so white and whatnot?
Oh, you're talking about the voters?
Yes, that article.
Yeah. I think I don't know the gentleman's name who sort of posted that. On my timeline. But yeah, I did sort of read it, and there's something to that. And I think the arguments, that they were trying to make, that predominantly almost all the voters are white. Now, do they necessarily vote that way? Hell no, I don't think so. But it doesn't change.
If that's the case, then how come most of the players that have made it have been black?
Sure, but it does sort of speak to the fact that it's not necessarily equal opportunity. There's no reason why there shouldn't be more African Americans or other writers of color in that room. at this point.
There should be, though. I would say it is kind of weird how you claim that the guy claimed that the reason. It seemed like the guy was also referring to the reason why the reason why Largy made it first ballot was because he's white.
Well, that's horseshit.
The reason why he did because that's idiotic. Also, having Eric Dickerson boasting about Dexter Manley not being in the Hall of Fame is also the same way. If he only wants him because he's his cousin. Let's be real here.
Well, Dexter Manley was a phenomenal, great player, and he blew it by snorting his way out of the league.
Yeah, and even then, come on, are you really going to push for Dexter Manley when there's guys like Gene Brito or Joe Jacoby, Pat Fisher, or Brian Fish, or Brian Mitchell that are better Redskins?
I love Dickerson. One of my favorite things, as a kid, was watching him play. On TV, because he was the first great running back that I remember watching on television. But he also says a lot of things that make no sense. Okay, we're going to boycott the Pro Football Hall of Fame ceremony until the NFL does this. It's a different organization, Eric. You don't hurt the NFL by boycotting the Hall of Fame.
It doesn't. It just doesn't make any sense to a lot of these people. And I would also say that the biggest argument still, people have not moved on from the Terrell Owens debacle. I still haven't, but I don't think it's more so about race. I think it's more so about personality. But as we know, personality over the years has a racial connotation to it, of course.
Well, you know what? I think you're right. And there's some times where you can look at God, I feel like we're the two wrong people to be having this conversation. I really do. But since we're already there,
yeah.
All right. Let's look at Rob Gronkowski. Gronk has always performed well in the field, always done everything that you really asked him to do when he was healthy. If Gronk was black, and a lot of his antics were sort of making that there would be a different sort of tone in people worrying about him. See, look what he's doing. He's goofing off. But if he was black, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But
it's because of the locker room. It's because Gary Myers regurgitates the weird accusation that, the locker room is part of the field, even though it obviously isn't. And, all this other stuff, which is weird. And also, I find it interesting how the same people that want to hate on stats all the time they get and say, it's not important, but yet they always bring up they never mention drop passes, but they only mention drop passes when it comes to Terrell Owens. Again, no. You were never saying about drop passes before. How come all of a sudden you're mentioning drop passes now? Drop passes or not, he still made it very, very high in terms of receptions, touchdowns, and receiving yards. So he made it in spite of those drop passes. Who cares? Okay? If you care so much about drop passes, and if you're only going to focus on him, you shouldn't be surprised when people are calling you racist.
Yeah, it's going back to that whole thing with Owens. I love T.O. I thought he should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, but there was a lot of people sort of in that room because there's a lot of things that T.O. did that maybe people don't remember because they didn't watch him sort of go through it. I mean, what he did to Jeff Garcia. Because he pretty much implied in an interview. Now, keep in mind, this is 2020. Most people I know don't give a shit about whether you're gay, straight, or whatever. In the NFL, it's probably different. But it was, 15 years ago, Owens pretty much implied to a magazine or the paper that Jeff Garcia is gay.
Skip Bayless did that with Troy Aikman. He still has a big job.
Sure. But it's also, and Garcia is not gay, to my knowledge. I mean, he got married to a Playboy model. But again, you're doing that to when he did this, when he said that about Garcia, that was his quarterback. You know.
Yeah, it's true.
So I mean, it's one thing if you're saying that about somebody who's on the opposing team. It's quite another when you're saying that about that because now it's all this other bullshit that enters all, the press junkets and all the other stuff. And now, granted, nowadays it shouldn't matter, but it did then, and it probably still does now, and it shouldn't. But you got to look at things from the lens that it was at the time. Owens, I think, has maybe bipolar issues. I mean, he acts like someone who does, so his intentions may not necessarily match his words or his thoughts.
What I find interesting about Owens is that he's gained a lot of his following also that way too, and also I noticed how people have not forgotten that, even though other people they have still not forgotten the way that Owens was handled, and of course they are still going to use that as a way to justify it. Still, a lot of people will, and I can see it. I feel like that might also happen with Antonio Brown, who might have unretired yesterday. I have no idea. He's another one.
Yes. But, I said to Evan on another show, Mark, maybe I said that to you. I don't remember that Antonio Brown essentially had that Calvin Johnson career, and if he didn't play last year for that cup of coffee with the Patriots, if he just stayed retired, he's in the Hall of Fame path that Megatron is.
Mm-hmm.
He acted his way out of a Hall of Fame potentially.
Maybe. I mean, we got to also see what happens, but we also know that there's also that wrinkle now that, if it doesn't happen, then they're racist and whatever.
Well, okay, but it depends on the player. Now, when you're looking at, I don't think someone's going to say that about Brown because now you've got a sexual abuse violation.
Brown will say it, and his base will believe it, though.
Okay, but I mean, if you throw that into an equation, like if it's a lot easier to then justify to a certain group why you don't want this person around because of this accusation. It's also a different year than it used to be. There's a lot of great players and a lot of bad players who did some awful misogynistic things. So, yeah, and this is sort of going in a weird tangent that I didn't think we were. I guess just sort of bringing it back to T.O., if T.O. was white, would he have still had to wait 3 years? Possibly. Maybe the way I think most of those voters in that room were looking at how he treated his teammates, became another distraction. Maybe they had conversations with other teammates that we don't know about. We sure as hell know Donovan McNabb wouldn't be advocating for T.O.
But then again, Owens is not exactly the guy that advocates for McNabb either.
Well, he openly doesn't.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, but at the same time, I'd say, ignore Owens when it comes to McNabb. For the love of God, don't bother listening to T.O. when it comes to McNabb because he'll say some shit, and the other guy will say, just ignore Owens when it comes to McNabb talk. Just ignore him completely. Yeah. Don't even think about bringing that question up to him.
Well, it won't. They can't help themselves. So I'll close this thought with this, with that Deadspin article, and it's not that fresh in my mind. But yes, I agree there should be more people of color in that room. No, they are definitely not looking at that through a purely white lens. I don't believe that in the least.
No, but at the same time, I would also say that, I've also seen people get up and say, "No, we're not racist." I don't know. It's the ultimate Rorschach test.
Well, then you just sort of fix that sort of problem. You just make sure that that people in that room sort of look a little bit more like the people who are on the field, and there's no reason why we can't find quality people to be there who are people of color. There's no doubt in my mind you can do it.
There should be, especially if they know as much history as I do, at least part of it, at least a little bit.
Well, what? Yeah, no, I'm just chuckling because you do. You know your stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, the only issue I have is I just hope that they also know this stuff as well. That's all. And it has nothing to do with race because there could be a black version of me for all I know. I have no idea.
I can't imagine that.
What?
I can't imagine that. But he's got to be cooler than you.
Yeah. Not only that, I don't see anyone else really advocating for this stuff. I mean, and for instance, I told one of my professors, I'm not trying to put him down, but my 70-plus-year-old professor that's been in the sports writers industry for 50 years has never heard anyone mention Charles Wallace by name, nor has he ever heard anyone say they want to be a Hall of Fame voter when they grow up.
You know, that's actually the perfect thing to sort of close on. So why don't you tell everyone, because you've done a great job on Twitter on that, but I don't think we've really touched on that on an audio platform. So why don't you tell everyone who Charles Wallace is? Because you've sort of educated me a lot on that individual. I didn't know that much about him. And why he should be in the Hall of Fame. I know we talked about that on a previous one. Actually, we did talk about that. But bring that one up again, please.
Charles Wallace is the reason why we have African American men playing the game today. He is the reason. He was the ultimate pioneer. When he was in high school and college, he was the captain of his football. He was the captain of the team, and then he became the first ever African American professional player when he signed with the Shelby Blues in 1902. When he played, he was also a good friend and a teammate of Branch Rickey, who, in case you're wondering, yes, the same Branch Rickey who became the iconic executive and general manager of the St. Louis Cardinals and the Brooklyn Dodgers, and he signed Jackie Robinson to the very first Major League deal in 1946 to African American. That stuff would not happen if it wasn't for Charles Wallace. His nickname was the Black Cyclone. When he retired, then he later died in 1910. Afterwards, he's had several fields named after him. In fact, the state of Ohio itself, February 3rd, is Charles Wallace Day. Do you realize how influential you have to be as an individual to have a day named after you? They don't do this for Jim Brown. They don't do this for Johnny Bench. They don't do this for any other iconic figure of Cleveland sports or Cincinnati sports or Ohio sports. But they did one for Charles Wallace. You need to understand how influential that was. And yes, you could say, oh, it's not just football, it's sports whole. Well, yeah, but he didn't just have, his impact in the football field was pretty significant. And it opened up this opportunity for everything else to happen. I know that there's also those people saying, oh, but I don't want politics in my Hall of Fame. Well, that's pretty ignorant to say there, buddy, because throughout history, politics and sports have always intertwined. I mean, you could say, oh, well, how good was he as a player? You need to also understand that being a pioneer in something, especially when no one else does it, you know the expression you have to work twice as hard to be half as good? Well, he was better than everyone else there. He was the captain of both his high school and college teams, like I just said. He had to go through all these hoops and bounds, and the fact that he had a day named after him in the state of Ohio, I think that resume speaks for itself. And if you're really going to get political, shut up. Understand how influential this person is on the history of African Americans in the sport, and of course to American football. How's that?
That's perfect. Now that's a statue I'd like to see. Vinny, you stay safe in New York, and I'm sure we'll do another show again.
That should be great. Best of luck, Kirk. And just like the voters, make sure you pressure as hard as you possibly can to have at least 2, potentially 3 seniors for the next couple of years for the Hall of Fame. I'm counting on you.
All right, sounds good. Take care.
You too. See you, Kirk.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, everyone, and look for new content on the regular from NotInHallOfFame.com.